is it hardcore to be in the sport for 2 years and get burnt out and be done with it? Or is it more hardcore to be doing it for 20, 25 years, continuing to progress, making those gains as you go? You know what I mean?
Completely agree.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I guess it depends on what your definition of hardcore is. But if you want to be one and done, and maybe you go and you win a pro card in 2 years and be done, okay, maybe.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Thanks for tuning back into the next Blood, Sweat, and Gear Coaching Q&A. I'm Scott McNally. I'm hanging out with coaches Skip Hill and Andrew Barry. We're going to tackle your listener questions as we always do. We got a ton of prep questions this week. So, hey, if you're on contest prep right now, shout out to you. Keep grinding, dig deep, and do your best. This week, we've got a bunch of topics. I have timestamps below if you want to skip around. We discuss post-show rebound. We give advice on splitting up your injections through the week. We discuss how tough should a prep be. Like, should it be so hard that you can't get off the couch? Contest cycle advice. Should you run a trial peak week? Anavar and Winstrol taking pre-workout on training days only. Dropping test and increasing DHTs as you close in on a show. How long is insulin good for? Slowing down fast-acting proteins, and a bunch more. If you're new here, let me encourage you to hit the subscribe button and hit the bell, because we have several bodybuilding podcasts that come out each week. Just tons of education and some entertainment featuring IFBB pros, experienced coaches, and educators in our industry that are all here to help you do better at the sport that we love and stay safe in the process. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Blood, Sweat, and Gear. I'm Scott McNally, and of course, I'm here with coaches Skip Hill and Andrew Barry. All of our programming is brought to you by TrueNutrition.com. You can use our code THINK for some additional savings on high-quality third-party tested supplements. And if you are in Canada, check out supplementsource.ca. They've got great deals, blowout deals, in fact, on high-quality supplements over there. And thank you to everybody who's supporting our programming on Patreon. Gentlemen, we're going to start by ambushing Skip.
Awesome.
So this
I'm the guy in the yellow shirt over there.
Andrew sent this to me before the show. He was like, "This is Skip recently. This is
today.
Video clip. This is
today or yesterday or something."
Yes, yeah, it was Monday actually.
Is this like an incognito prep?
It's full of French. Oh God, no. Yeah, here's the thing. You don't see my quads or lack thereof. I'm not kidding. If I would jump. I would love to compete, but my quads are. I literally finished that rehab 4 or 5 weeks ago, so now I'm starting to build back. But to be honest with you, I should be focusing on taking in more calories right now. I'm building, and I want to get retardedly lean first, probably because I haven't been able to do what I've wanted to do the last couple of years, and everything has been up in the air. So I'm just really happy to be in really good condition. And then I'm going to literally stop when it's not easy. And I don't want to sound like a dick, but because I've been doing it so long, it is a fucking cakewalk right now. I'm barely over I think I'm 205, 204, 205. I'll be right below that by the end of the week. I'll probably get to 200 pounds before I decide, okay, I've had enough. I'm not going to work too hard to get there, but I want to be lean, be insulin sensitive, and then shift gears and really just hammer my fucking legs as much as I can hammer them. Right now, I'm still programming my brain to know that it's not injured anymore. And that's a very difficult thing to do because it's been programmed the other way for so long that it's just kind of hard to break that. So I'm just enjoying being, lean as fuck right now, to be honest with you.
Jacked and tan.
It's funny because you had posted a video training shoulders the other day, and I shared it with the group, the Think Big bodybuilding group on Facebook, and somebody was like, "Dude, Skip, you don't look that big in the video." And like on the podcast, like you don't look like you have that kind of mass in the podcast. I would have never guessed. And it's funny because as I explained, your camera is pointing down. It creates this like bobblehead effect where your head looks bigger, making your body look smaller, and you don't look like you have the level of muscle you do, which I just find that funny because even when I met you in person, I was like, oh shit, you're a lot bigger than I realized because your camera's at this angle that like, Yeah, it just distorts things a little bit.
Yeah, see, the camera on the podcast is more to make me not look like, instead of 52, I want to look like 50, 51. So I don't really care if I don't look big as much as I just don't want to look as old as I am. And that's why when that guy said it, he goes, Skip looks 500 years old on the podcast. I was like, oh, you could have said I was fat. You could have said I was small, but you said I looked 500 years old. That one hurt.
I think he meant like, though, that you look like you didn't have muscle, like that you were, you know.
No, I get it.
I think that's what he meant. But yeah, anyway,
I take it in stride.
Yeah, you are looking good, man. We actually had a question. You what?
I had to pull it and send it to you and give you props, man. You look awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
We had a question related to dieting down in order to grow. So I'll see if I can pull that one up a little later today. But guys, we have a ton of listener questions here today. You guys literally bombarded us on the last episode, which is awesome. We appreciate it because especially comments, likes, and questions that you ask for the show help to boost our programming in the algorithm. More people is helping to, it's helping more people to find the show, which is awesome. So I appreciate that. We'll just dive in straight here at the top. JL has a question for the next show. I've always been This is it. I just randomly grabbed it. I've always been fascinated by the idea of the post-show rebound. I know you guys, for the most part, recommend guys go into to more of a cruise health phase following a show. If no more shows are planned for the season, is there ever a situation where you would have someone push hard for a few weeks following a show before going into a cruise period? Thanks as always.
I don't know that there's not a, not a, like we wouldn't do that. I just think, because we've discussed this before, which is not to take a shot at the guy for asking the question, but I think Andrew and I think the same way in the sense that coming off the show, the increase in calories alone becomes so growth pushing and so anabolic, for lack of a better word. I know that people don't like to hear that food is anabolic because anabolic equates to drugs, but it is anabolic in the sense that it's building and, providing the building blocks for muscle tissue. So the calories are so under respected from an anabolic standpoint. So going into a cruise, so many people can grow, even people with mediocre shitty genetics, you can grow, you can increase the calories and you can come down to TRT type doses and you can grow very, very well. Are there times where you may stay on gear and push hard? Yeah, I don't particularly like to, because I think that when you come off of a show, most people have driven themselves to the point where you have minor aches and pains. You want a little bit of recovery in there shortly after the show, and to go and start slamming, heavier weights and really start, especially if you're going to start regaining strength very, very quickly or rapidly from the increase in calories. I don't know. I think there's a vulnerability there. Obviously, with me, it's a little bit different because I'm older. If I was 25 again, I'd probably try to grow like a motherfucker for the first month or two after. But I just don't think that needs to happen. I think you can grow like crazy by adding in calories and keeping the gear low, making sure your health markers are good. And then you get that growth from the food, the increase in calories while you're cruising. And then you go back on cycle and you just build on what you've already built with the lower gear and the higher calories, and you keep going.
I can't necessarily disagree with that at all. I also think it's person dependent. For instance, let's say, 2 weeks out, you had someone do their labs and they had a 12 or 15 week prep that was not very stressful to them. Their labs looked fairly good. You say, okay, we can push 4 to 6 weeks after the show, and then we'll go into a cruise phase. I wouldn't be adverse to that. And I think also, I explained to everyone, like, a lot of it comes down to like your level of risk adversity in terms of like health, like, would it be healthier to take no drugs? Absolutely. Would it be a lot more, you know what I mean? Like, So it's kind of, everyone has their own little notch on what they're comfortable with in terms of rolling the dice with their health, Right. So I try to get a really good gauge with where that person is, and then try to steer them the safest way I think possible to get to where we want to go. So it wouldn't be uncommon for someone who had a typical, prep. It was hard, but not like overly hard to say, okay, 4 to 6 weeks, we're probably going to cut the gear in half and use food as the driver, like you're talking about. We're probably going to pull training back a little bit, because I think I look at this, there's like an inverse relationship between like stress and results. And I think, when you can lower that stress, you're not doing cardio every day the same amount you were doing. You're not putting the same amount of compounds in your body. You're not, you're going to be eating a lot more food. You're probably going to be sleeping better. So your stress level is going to go down. That's going to help you provide the growth. So I think you can do it with a lot less gear. I'm not saying like, the day you get off stage, you're dropping right back down to 125 mgs of TRT. That's not probably what I'm saying at all. There've only been maybe one situation where I've had someone do that because it was on their, behest. But I do think gear should be like the third or fourth factor in the programming at that point, whereas the food, rest and recovery, and the injuries and blood work should dictate what the next move is there.
Yeah. And I realize some of the listeners won't think that's very hardcore and that we're downplaying. I can't continue to do this. I understand. I'll keep taking this cheap shot, but
I think I've done it both ways.
Can I say one more thing to Skip's point? Is it hardcore to be in the sport for 2 years and get burnt out and be done with it? Or is it more hardcore to be doing it for 20, 25 years, continuing to progress, making those gains as you go? You know what I mean?
Completely agree.
You know what I'm saying? Like I guess it depends on what your definition of hardcore is. But if you want to be one and done, and maybe you go and you win a pro card in 2 years and be done, okay, maybe. But
I'll go one step further.
Also, you're responding to one person. Don't forget you're responding to one person.
Not necessarily. I mean, I get what you're saying, because I was focused on that, but still, it's not the only. That's not the only person who's. There have been more than a few that have been critical, and that my only other thing to add would be: is it still hardcore then if you go 20 years and you make minimal progress because you aren't very good at what you're doing and you think that there is something else there that we're holding back? That's really what it keeps coming back to. I just want to emphasize that we are here telling you the truth to try to help people, and then to be criticized for that, it does kind of cut a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. I'll tell you this. I've gone both ways, being that I remember one post-contest switching my compounds. I went to NPP. And I was like, okay, I need to run this for 4 or 6 weeks. And I think I ended up running it for like 8 weeks. And, I've gone to that extreme, probably even added in a little bit of deep ball or something like that to it. And then I've gone to the other side, the other extreme of just relying on the food. And I've buried myself with food post-contest to the point where I basically ruined my rebound, and I've ridden it out as long as I absolutely could. And through all that, I think I've found the balance. And I think the word that I use is, after years and years of experimenting with myself and then having a lot of clients that you see the results with, you learn the term is finesse. You learn the finesse where you don't, as you had said, Andrew, you don't need to hit it with a hammer to get the results. And I discovered that maybe I didn't need to do some of the more extreme stuff I had done post contest. And it does, as you guys said, I think it depends on everybody. I've had situations where if it's a client that I've worked with long term and we have had to have an easy prep, then maybe we are more likely to say leave the test in for a little bit longer post cycle or post contest. On the other hand, I'm thinking of one guy who came to me, and he was working with another coach, and he was committed to that coach right up until his contest, and then he wanted to start working with me. We started together, and I saw his training was atrocious. Like, the way he did his barbell rows was terrible, like some of the worst I'd seen in my life. And he couldn't handle taking 8 weeks to get cleaned up and learn training technique. I'm trying to, get him to get to the point where we can actually grow his back, because that's what he needed to do with this off season. Take that first 8 weeks to focus on this technique while we're cleaning out. And he couldn't do that. And I mentioned this guy before, and he was like, I want to go to another coach who was going to, hammer the gear right away. So hammer the gear right away with that same fucking shitty technique that nobody ever taught you how to do a barbell row in your life. Okay, but that's not my style. So I think it depends on the person. But what I've learned is that the food does so much post-contest. You can do so much with the food post-contest that you don't necessarily need to hammer the drugs like you would think.
Can I give like a real example of maybe something I did recently with someone? I mean, if this might help this guy out, let's say someone was running the typical, test, Masteron, trend, some orals running into the show. Let's see. I think what we did is we bumped his test back up to 500. He was I think we pulled his test the last 10 days or so, but he was only at like 350 tests right into that show. We bumped his test to 500 and we added in 400 milligrams of Preworkout. It's literally, and we pulled all the orals. So this is in terms of milligrams, because I do sometimes like to look at things in milligrams. It was less than half the milligrams of what he was taking leading into the show. And I think that's a fairly appropriate way to do it. It's not an exact formula, but I think, we pulled, we bumped his test up just a little bit, added a little bit of Preworkout in, pulled out, the trend, the Masteron, Halo Testin, the Winstrol, all those other exotics, if you want to call them that.
Right on. All right, we got a bunch of these here, so we could probably try to just fly through as many as we can. James says, thanks for the podcast, lads. What do you guys think about injection protocols while on cycle? If you use long esters, would you roll on with once per week, twice per week, or every other day? Is there any real benefit of more regular shots keeping levels more stable?
Andrew, I think you go more frequently than I do. I'm pretty much an every other day guy, but don't you typically, you go daily, right?
Off season, I'm every other day, and then pre-contest, when we get to like 6 weeks out, I like to go daily.
Okay.
Honestly, I think the distinction between every other day and daily is like this much of a difference. I just am a creature of habit during prep situations. I want to do the same thing every day. So after I take my shower, when I get done from the gym, I go to my little stash and I take whatever I need to take for the day.
Yeah.
Just because it's, what I mean, repetition. Except for Sundays, that's the day for the Lord.
Yes, exactly. No drugs on the Sabbath. Keep it holy. Which is funny because I don't take damn near anything on Sundays either. Not that I'm very religious,
lazy.
But nonetheless, it's my day off. I'm like, ooh, I don't have to take anything today.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is he touched on or was talking about too about long esters. I think it's important to say that I still believe that even though the longer esters, the cypionates, the EQs, and things like that, I still think it's better to hit those at least twice a week. And if you're on an every other day protocol, you might as well. Some people do this. Some people will say, well, I'll take my long esters once a week and then my shorter esters the 2 or 3 times a week. You might as well just keep everything the same.
Yeah.
And then that way you don't screw up mentally and think you're on a different day or drop the wrong thing. It's continuity. It's just the consistency of having the same thing every time, and then you take those long esters, even though they're long esters. And I think that still allows and I have not done any blood level, blood reads or anything, but it just stands to reason that it would be logical that they would maintain better, even though they're longer esters, if they're injected more frequently.
I think it was either episode 100, 101, or 102 with Scott Stevenson in Muscle Minds. We are looking at some studies showing test SIP may have a half-life of 3.5 days, depending on who's taking it. So, we look at the websites about steroids, and it'll tell you it's like 10 days long, but in the real world, it might not be. So that would be my first thought. And my other thought is, I'm with you guys 100%. Like I like the every other day protocol, even with long esters, especially in prep. Maybe not off season. Like if we were, say, like on 750 Sustanon, even might do a Monday, Wednesday, Friday with that. But every other day is nice because I don't like the idea personally of having like one more voluminous shot in my that happens to be now a shoulder, and then having a smaller shot, that happens to end up in the glute, the next shot. I'd rather just keep it all the same.
And the other one's not, and it's irritated.
Yeah, exactly.
And let me ask you guys this. If you were doing, let's say you're doing a shot of, I don't know, let's say it ends up being 4 cc's and you don't want to do 4 cc's in one spot. Do you measure out exactly so that each syringe has the exact same amount of compounds? Let's say you're doing 3 different compounds. Do you measure them out so that each of them are the exact same? Say you're going to do bilateral shoulders, because that's what I do. Like
I always do that.
Yeah, 100 mgs of test and 50 mgs of trend and 50 mgs of master, whatever it might be. I want to make sure they're both equal. I don't want 3 cc's of test on this side and 3 cc's of something else. I want it all evenly dispersed.
Yep.
Ooh,
I'm excited. And I never do one side. I haven't done an injection on one side in 10 years. It's always bilateral. Always. I'm not going to have one shoulder more sore than the other or one lat more. No, and it's going to be exactly the same comp. I love your OCD-ness. I appreciate that.
Well, another reason I think doing like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday type injection schedule is, you can time your AIs to try to, counteract when aromatase is going to be most active. And I think you can get away with taking less AIs, because I know a lot of people in prep, like I see some cycles where people are like a milligram of Arimidex at 20 weeks out, and they're doing like shots like Mondays and Thursdays. And I'm like, why are you taking that, that dose of Arimidex on like Wednesday, Thursday, when like aromatase isn't gonna be that active because your test levels it just doesn't make sense to me. I think we always want to try to maintain most stable blood levels possible.
Yeah. All right. Nick in the live feed asks us, how do you differentiate between severe body fatigue versus needing to just suck it up in the last weeks of prep? I'm not competing, but I'd say I'd be 5-ish weeks out conditioning wise, and I can barely stand up off the couch sometimes. Major lethargy. Stims have been pretty high and sleep is terrible. I just question if it's supposed to be this brutal or if something needs to change.
That's a tough one because we don't have a lot of information. It's experience. I mean, it's experience with yourself, but it's also experience with seeing it with clients and getting and asking for specific feedback. I'll say this, if you are just can barely stand up, that's pretty rough. Prep is more, and you guys correct me if you feel differently. Prep is more, even at its worst, prep is more like, I'm dragging ass and I'm depleted, but when it's time to train, I can train. I can make it happen. If you can't make it happen, then you have to question, really, you're too depleted, you're overtrained, your caloric intake is just absurdly low. Something, in my opinion, at that level is off. I will agree, though, that people have different measures or gauges. Some people will be starving at 17 weeks out, and they're no more hungry at 17 weeks out than they are at 9 weeks out. So sometimes people are just different. And sometimes people be hungry and they'll gauge it as it's a 2 or 3 on a scale of 1 to 10. There's just different tolerances too. But if you can't function, I would go to your training. I would say, what is your training like? Are you just ridiculously weak? Do you fall off a cliff after the first exercise or two, or are you able to train? Because if you're able to train and maintain relative strength levels and pump and everything else, then honestly, I might say suck it up, Buttercup, because the training, if you're truly that exhausted to where you can't get up off the couch, your training has to be suffering mad.
Yeah. Would you guys agree that the stims, like if you do a prep or a diet with high stims, that you end up with more fatigue than if you don't rely on stims as much earlier in
adrenal fatigue? Sure, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like I'll give you a quick one. I had a girl compete at Universe. Yeah, I had a girl that competed at Universe, and we pulled all the stimulants of any types, and she's like, man, I'm just so tired now that you pulled all the clen and stimulants. I'm like, whoa, no, you're tired because you got over the hump. Like, you were focused for 20 weeks on this one goal. Yeah. Mentally, physically, you blocked everything out. Like, the stims weren't even doing anything by the time we got on stage. Like, at that point, we'd been running the clen for 5-6 weeks. There was 1% of that was doing something for your body. You just have mentally crossed that hurdle, and your body realizes, oh, I can relax now, and you're feeling that fatigue that you held on to during prep. So I don't think I think the stims, absolutely. I would ask him this: does he, like, because I find when people describe what he's describing, they're actually not hungry at all. They're just like, I lost my appetite completely.
Yeah.
I think that's. And to me, that's a sign, okay, well, we need to pull back. Like, we're going to pull your training back to like 3 30-minute sessions of just going in there and like pumping for the mirror type shit, if that. Right. Or we might even pull it for 10 days straight. I've gone as extreme as just pulling training for 10 days straight. We're going to pull your cardio, and we're just going to do 20-minute walks outside to get some sunshine in the morning. And we're going to feed you up. Probably we're going to bump your maybe your carbs if you're eating, let's say you're at 150 grams of carbs a day. We're probably going to double those for 5 days and then reassess how you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to say without seeing the pictures. It's hard to say without
Yep.
going through this journey with him up to this point
Yeah.
of like what his responses were, how his body was responding to the changes you made. So it's really hard to say, but I do think, go back to what Skip said, of like, if you're going in the gym and like even your first exercise, you're like, oh, how am I going to fucking do this? It's definitely time for a break.
Also,
if it's anything other than that,
he said he was 5 weeks out, or he thinks he's 5. If you're 5 weeks out and your condition is 5 weeks out and you're dragging ass, that's different. But if you're not truly 5 weeks out and you still have a substantial amount of body fat, and you're that depleted and you're that beat down, I'd be taking a closer look at what you're doing. I'd start adjusting things.
yeah.
All right. John Wayne is with us, and he's getting ready for a show. He says, thanks for all the content, fellas. Currently 9 weeks out of my first show. What do you guys think about me finishing my prep cycle weekly at 500 milligrams test, Masteron at 400, Tren Ace at 150, Winstrol at 50 milligrams a day? Then it looks like he's saying he wants to go to 500 test.
It looks like a repeat.
400.
It's like a copy of it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And using Clen at 20 micrograms 3 times per day. He says, what do we think about him finishing his contest cycle out at that?
I have a problem. I don't know what he was doing before.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing that stands out there that says that's, crazy or insane or you know.
Yeah, there's nothing there. I mean, maybe you just might want to work with the test a little bit, depending on your aromatization and if you feel like you're carrying a little estrogen. But because you didn't mention anything about AIs or anything like that. But
Right.
True.
But that doesn't seem like a far-fetched cycle at all.
All right. Lake Fork Giant says, question for the next show. I have a hard time staying asleep for a few years now. Gear seems to exacerbate. Can you say that word?
Exasperate.
Thank you. The problem. I knew Skip.
See, we all got our words, Scott. We all got our words.
I guess we do. The problem. I have a bunch of them. So I stay on low doses of test now. He says, I've tried a lot of medications and supplements like diphenhydramine, HCl, Benadryl. Seems to help the best. There's a study saying that this drug hinders recovery from training. Do you guys know anything about this? Any ideas would be appreciated. Rest is one of the things that is really slowing down my progress. I can tell him that there's studies to say that diphenhydramine increases the chance of Alzheimer's.
The studies were done at the college I went to.
Did it really? Did they?
Yeah. One of my clients was a doctor that worked on it.
I still take it fairly regularly for sleep.
Do you really?
Yeah. It helps tremendously. But yeah,
that's the one thing I'm scared of is being demented.
Who are you? Where am I?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm scared of it too, but I still use what is it? Antiperspirant. So maybe they've changed the formula over the years. I don't know. Yeah, I eat aluminum too. I just don't care.
We also probably inject a bunch of it,
I wanted to ask Skip how
I don't give a fuck.
I want to ask Skip how you tried the Relax Blend, right?
Oh yeah.
No.
Oh
no, it was actually for my wife, but she is not comfortable yet using it. Which is
you guys are sitting on the couch.
I respect that. That's fine. So it's kind of sitting there waiting for her to.
Well, she's sitting on the couch.
The other thing is, in her defense, she has started to train and start a diet, so she's actually sleeping very well versus how she was sleeping before. But it's sitting there waiting for her. I'm not going to ask her about it. I'm going to wait for her to ask me about it. So I haven't used it, and I don't have to. I sleep like a fucking rock.
Why don't you let her see you take it though? So that
I could, but I figure I've guinea pigged myself with drugs for how many years? I don't need to do one more.
This is where you draw the line, huh?
Yeah, I draw the line at melatonin and
natural amino acids is where Skip draws the line.
Right.
Yeah. None of that shit that's not going to work or make me big or ripped.
So back to this guy's question.
Yeah,
I would have him go on and order the ZRT diurnal cortisol test. It's where you spit in the tube 4 times throughout the day. It sounds like he falling asleep and waking up in the middle of the night. Can you just put that up one more time? I just want to make sure I have this right.
Yeah, I don't think he.
I don't think he said. I don't think
he said. He just said
hard time
staying asleep. Okay, so I read that as he's falling asleep and he's waking up. So what happens is, in a lot of us, overtraining, overstressing our adrenals, we flip-flop our circadian. And normally you're supposed to have a high cortisol release in the morning. It's going to dip down throughout the day and should be lowest around midnight or so. So what happens is that gets flip-flopped a little bit, and you get that spurt somewhere around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And a diurnal cortisol test where you spit in the tube will help confirm that. And then to remedy that, if that's what it is, he needs rest, deload, detox. So if he wants, he can hire me for like a full program for it. Not trying to sell my services, but just saying that I have a program that I do with people when in this particular situation, and it works, and it involves several supplements. It involves rest, involves deloading. It usually takes about 6 to 8 weeks to completely combat, and then people are usually fine and they are right back to sleep again, like normal. So.
Nice. I also suggest he goes, if he goes back in the archive on our podcasts, I had Dr. Dean on. If you search for Hacking Sleep with Dr. Dean St. Mart, he explains what's happening with our neurotransmitters and what goes wrong, including like what goes wrong when we use Tren. And he has a product called the Sleep Stack from Supplement Needs. And actually, we have a code. Like, I don't get any kind of kickback, but you guys get, I think, 20% off advices. That's how old that code is. And it still works because somebody recently told me they used it. But he has a really good product. It's worth it because if you buy everything individually that's in it, you can do that too. But it would be like really expensive to get them all individually. So just one other thing to consider. When I've taken that, it hasn't necessarily like knocked me out, but I've ended up getting really good rest. And when I wake up, I feel like, do you guys remember there was an old cartoon? Most of our listeners and viewers won't remember this. Skip will. Do you remember? Thanks. It was called like The Sound of the South from, and there was like,
Skip was a voice on the show. He was a voice on the show.
That's fucked up.
There's the cartoon little bluebird that's like on the guy's shoulder, and he's all like, yeah. I feel like that's me when I've used that product. I think it's the 5-HTP, but it's like I wake up and like that little bird's on my shoulder. I'm like, this is the best day of my life. I slept so good. But anyway.
Am I the only one who sleeps well on Tren? I don't know. I think I'm an outlier.
Since I switched to daily,
yeah.
Since I switched to daily injections, not a single problem. But when I used to do like Monday, Thursday, like it was no real necessary rhyme or reason. Like every 3 days, yeah, I absolutely saw. Okay. I would be staring at that fan.
Oh God. Wow. All right, let's see. I'll just jump forward here to try to keep us moving. Billy G. He says, coaches, what do you think about doing a trial peak week about 4 to 5 weeks out before a show? Is there something to be gained, or will it detract from prep? By peak week, I mean primarily doing a carb deplete for 3 to 4 days, then have carb taper back up 300 to 600 on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. During depletion, the workouts are mostly pump, no crazy intensity. Have you done this with clients? I am 6 weeks out and my first show ever, and I am considering this trial peak week. I could probably use a bit of a deload before the final weeks, which the pump workouts would serve the purpose of. I would also like to see what happens when the carbs deplete 3 to 4 days. Your thoughts?
Absolutely. I think the only, I would imagine, I mean, we all do it. Maybe not with every single client, but you usually, especially with a new client or a new competitor, you have to, maybe not 4 or 5 weeks out. Sometimes it's a little bit closer, but it's certainly not bad. The question is whether you're in condition or not, whether you're running behind, you have the time, or if you're pushing the 11th hour. That's the bigger issue. You have to be able to give up potential progress for that time that you're doing that. But it's a great idea because then you're not going in blind. The benefit for us as coaches is because we've done it for so long, even without a trial run, we are far more likely to get it right or very, very close to getting it right without the trial run. But it's still always better to get a trial run if you can. Even something like mild diuretic use or manipulation of water as well, combined with carbs. If you can get that in there, that's great. And it's important that those workouts are not at 100% while you're doing it, because you don't want to deal with the water manipulation and going in and trying to train heavy, not being fully hydrated, depletion, days and stuff like that, which I'm not big on depletion personally, but that doesn't mean that it's wrong. Plenty of coaches use it, and that's their method, and that's fine. It just depends. Different coaches have different methods. So definitely, if you have the time to be able to do that, absolutely do it, especially for your first show. If nothing else, it'll give you peace of mind because you'll have a better idea of how things are going to play out. Let me add one more thing, and that is with the skip loading protocol. My clients, because I typically, not always, but I typically load them peak week in some fashion of skip loading, because we've skip loaded so many of those weeks for the prep. A lot of that is already understood, or we have a very, very good idea of not only how much they're going to fill out and how much they need, but how many days it takes for them to dry out, what they look like the next day, how long they're going to hold water. So that gives us half of the trial run that you would do. It gives you half of that information. Then from there, really, I could take a skip load with someone 4 weeks out, and I could just manipulate their water a little bit, and then know that adding, if I had to, a diuretic on top of that, because I've seen so many clients over so many years, I have a pretty good idea of how they're going to respond. I don't know exactly how they're going to, because everybody's different. Weapon X, same thing. He said that, he didn't move as much water as he wanted to. Sometimes that'll happen, but it's always good to get a trial if you can spare the time.
There you go with that. Anything you wanted to add, Andrew?
I had like 6 things, but then Skip moved on to like the next one. I was like, I got something about that too. And then he moved, but no. It was all good. It was all good.
All right, cool. Then let's rapid fire the rest of these, because we have so many that we need to get through. Chris says, question for the next episode. What do you guys think about Anavar and Winstrol Sublingual pre-workout on training days? Training days only, basically. Thanks for the great info.
Swallow it.
I mean, yeah.
Come on now. Next.
Be a good girl. Well, but then, no. So I'm assuming there was like a test base or something else in there. Can we assume that?
Yeah.
Like it's not just an Anavar only cycle, and you're not just training 3 days a week and getting 50 mgs of Anavar or Winstrol 3 or 4 days a week. I'm assuming there's more to this cycle. So if that's the case, then yeah, I don't see a problem with it.
Good point. All right. Awesome show as always. Thank you. He says, currently 5 weeks out from my bodybuilding show. What do you guys think of dropping testosterone and upping the dose of DHTs like Masteron and Winstrol 4 weeks out? I seem to lose the last pounds of fat in my midsection and thinking of getting that estrogen down to lose bloat and water. I'm very sensitive to estrogen conversion. Currently on 500 test, 200 mast E, 100 Tren Ace, 80 micrograms of Clen, and 40 milligrams of Winstrol.
First, I want to point out we're seeing a lot of cycles with like really, really low trend doses, like 100 a week, 150 a week from the last one. I just thought that was kind of interesting.
Unless he means every other day or something. But yeah.
he's taking 500 tests, 400 master run, and 100 every. No.
Probably every week.
Well, I think what I wanted to point out though is I think people are seeing that like, hey, you don't need to be doing 600 milligrams of trend to get the effects. Like I think I told you I had a guy running 30 milligrams a day, and he came in looking as if he was running 50 to 100 mgs a day. But I don't think he necessarily needs to pull his test completely. I would say maybe try dropping it to 250 and see, how his physique is looking. I don't think you need to go from one extreme all the way to the other immediately. Why don't you drop down to 300 or 250 and see how you're doing there in terms of the estrogen? And then you can reassess. Because it sounds like, what do you say, 6 weeks out? He's got plenty of time. He's going to notice in 2 weeks if – okay, so if he does that, he's going to notice in 10, 12 days, if that adjustment, worked for him, and then he can decide further, does he need to go a little more, or is that the right spot to stay for him?
Okay. You good with that, Skip?
Yeah, I am. It's funny. I was smiling because I was going to say the same thing. Drop to 200 or 300. I was going to go with maybe even increase whatever you drop, increase 100 or 200 milligram on the Masteron. Yeah. But I wouldn't drop it completely. To me, and this is just me, taking Masteron without tests, I'm not a big fan of that. It just works so synergistically with the, with testosterone that it complements the tests and, increases free testosterone, all that good shit. So, and a mild anti-estrogen property too. So I wouldn't drop it all the way either.
Thank you for tuning in to another podcast here at Think Big Bodybuilding Media. If we've provided value to you today, then please consider contributing to our show. You can help support the show through Patreon. Every $5 helps to pay for the software and the hardware and everything else that goes into making a podcast. You can also contribute by using our code at True Nutrition. True Nutrition has been our title sponsor for several years now. I'm super grateful for them, and I've believed in True Nutrition supplements long before they sponsored our programming. You could use our code THINK for health supplements and performance supplements. Feel free to hit me up if you have any questions. And if you're in Canada, check out supplementsource.ca. They have free shipping over $99, huge discounts on overstocked, short-dated, and label-changed products. Plus, they have all your normal supplements too. Thank you guys for listening to the commercial. I hope you're having a great day and that your bodybuilding is going well. Let's get back to the show.
All right. Okay. Question for the next show. A legit training, non-gear question from Justin. He says, I read Skip's article about doing vacuums to bring the waist in. What else can I do to bring my thick ass waist in? Years of strongman has left me with a ton of injuries and a thick trunk. I'm moving to men's physique and my waist is a factor. I'm leaning out and my abs are visible, but the leaner I get, the thicker they are. Love the show, guys. Thanks.
So
well, I did write another article after
physique.
the vacuum thing, and that was the 3 things, and it involved not only the vacuums and obviously abdominal training, but oblique training, because I think oblique training got a really bad rap in the late 80s. People were doing heavy side bends and they were getting thick obliques, and then as an industry, we just kind of went, oh, bad idea, don't train your obliques. Horrible idea, and I'm pissed at myself for not revisiting it sooner than I did. If you train your obliques correctly, they will actually help to keep your waist smaller, and it will help to keep, and this is what I've been getting so much attention for from older guys, and I won't mention any names, but some bigger name dudes have contacted me and said, oh my God, I was given your article. This is fucking gold. I might actually be able to go back and start training again. And I want to get my pro card, where I wasn't able to do that because I knew the distension would kill me and it wouldn't allow me to do that. So anyway, obviously the vacuums are hugely important because the TVA, that's I've gone on and on about that before, but the oblique training is important. Now, I don't know his particular situation. If from strongman, he just really has thick, I'm going to say something that might seem a little bit odd, but if it's truly thickness through his obliques, through his abs and everything else, I would literally not train him.
Yeah.
I would let those fuckers atrophy to some, because first, if you have a strong trunk, then giving up some of that, you're still going to maintain a lot of that. And if you're training for men's physique, you're not going to be training something like strongman or powerlifting, so you don't need that level of strength through your core, for lack of a better word, but through your midsection and everything else. You're not going to need that. I would never tell somebody who's training heavier in bodybuilding to do that, but in men's physique, it may actually benefit him because he'd be able to bring him down. But still, I'm not convinced that not training obliques correctly, I really think that can help a lot of people. Now, I don't know if he has distension. I don't know if it's just thick abdominals. See, sometimes people say, well, I got thick abdominals, and really what they mean is, I was a strong man and I'm still fat. I ain't lean enough yet. Now, I don't know if that's what he's saying, but it could be. So get really lean first if you're not, to make sure that, the abs come down, especially if you're holding intra-abdominal fat, which a lot of us do. Older guys will hold that fat in. It's not sub-Q fat. It's fat inside around your fucking organs. And it's actually the most unhealthy of all of them anyway. And a lot of times when you get lean as fuck, and obviously that body fat, that intra-abdominal fat comes down too, not only are you healthier, but then all of a sudden you have this waist where you're like, it ain't as big as I thought it would be. It's pretty fucking lean, and it could be pretty small. Hell of a transition, though, going from strongman to men's physique. I got to give him props.
Yeah, that one got me.
Pull that off. Yeah, I'm pulling for him.
Hey guys, using Humalog only 2 days a week right now for back and legs. The bottle says it can be used for only 30 days after opening. Is it safe to use longer, and how long before it goes bad?
Hard telling. Yeah.
I mean, if you kept it in the fridge and you kept it in a spot where it's not getting sunlight, it's not getting shaken, it's basically just staying in that vial still. it should still be pretty good. Now, one way to test it out, and I have people do this when they're like, hey, I found a bottle of insulin. Same thing I said earlier, like take 2 or 3 units first thing in the morning, get up, check your blood glucose, take 2 or 3 units, chart how much it makes you drop. If it doesn't drop at all, then it's not good anymore. But if it's still dropping, then it's working. It's real. It's working.
You went in it the good way. I was going to say take 5, wait till you go hypo, and then have some carbs ready. If you don't go hypo, it's bad.
I just don't want any of that inadvertent manslaughter charges coming my way. So Skip told you to go 5. I said do 2 in the monitor with blood glucose.
I have a friend who's given me insulin, type 1 diabetic, who's basically been on it all his life. And I've asked him, I was like, hey, that insulin you gave me, is that still good? He's like, yeah, I'd still use it. He's like, I forget how long he said, but it's like an obnoxious amount of time that it's still good.
Yeah. If it's a bottle of Novolin, throw it away. If it's a bottle of Humulin R, because it costs about 8 times as much, then you might want to check it out. But Novolin, $30 a bottle, throw that shit out.
All right, we got another guy. 3 weeks out for a show. 3 weeks out from a show. And
is everybody competing?
I know. It's cool.
Everybody
it's
but me, guys. Apparently. Go ahead.
I'd love to hear your full water manipulation protocol for a 210-pound heavyweight competitor. Full example, final week. And does it matter if the person has issues with the past with sweating a lot? Also, would love to hear an example of skip loading protocol, and has this changed through the years? Thanks in advance, Scott. I gotta move this in your face, Gertrude. That was a comment I made the other day. Comment almost wrecked my truck laughing. I like to know when we can almost make our listeners crash.
Josh, I'm going to take a shot at you. Nice try getting full water manipulation protocol and skip loading protocol. Props to you, Josh. Oh, shit.
Yeah, but even more than that, I don't have a water manipulation protocol. I don't have, you know what I'm saying? Especially if there's an experienced competitor, I say, okay, what did you do last time? How do you feel like it worked? It'd be stupid not to ask those questions, right? If they looked really good and you helped them put on this muscle and you want to repeat a good peak for them. So I don't think there's like a water protocol that it's trial. That's why you would do that trial run that someone asked about, the 6 weeks out question.
Well, let me ask you this, Andrew. If you're doing a water, let's say a water depletion with a client, how often are you looking at them, either in person or in pictures during that, say, during the week? Can you even count how many times you see them?
Well, so as we get closer to the show, literally it's like, okay, eat meal 1, and then an hour later want pictures. After meal 2, an hour later pictures.
And you're adjusting based off of those pictures, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because
or how it's trending for the pictures. Yeah, exactly. It may not be every meal, but it's what's the trajectory? Which way is it going here? What's going on?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I ask for every meal. Now, sometimes clients, I think they think I'm annoying, so they might send it like every other meal or something like that. And I'm like, guy, I'm just here, or girl, I'm just here trying to help you look your best. So like, if it's like too much of a pain for you to like go and bring your scale with you, jump on it real quick, and then wear something that you can take pictures in, have your tripod ready at work or wherever, 1 front, 1 back shot, whether it's a guy front double, back double, whatever it is, that's all I'm asking for. It's literally like a pee break, but something, how people are when prep, they're like, oh, just another thing to do. But more information is better, in my opinion. So,
yeah. All right. Real quick one. Another quick one here. Great show, guys, from our live feed. Alfonso's back. By the way, Alfonso has his own podcast, Skip. He's the very well-dressed man in the suit. Yes. He's a lawyer.
Oh, yeah, Alfonso.
Yeah, he's a lawyer.
He's a what?
He's a lawyer.
I could tell.
You could tell. Yeah.
He's either a lawyer or like a really successful like real estate.
Yeah, I could see that too. Yeah.
But I can see lawyer.
He says just basically slowing down whey protein digestion. He's using whey protein at night. Currently, he's been adding pea protein milk, 4.5 grams of fat, 8 grams of protein, and 0 carb. He says, I throw in a cup of 2% Greek yogurt, too. So basically, he just wants to try to slow that digestion down in the evening.
More fat.
Yeah.
Well, it depends too. What I missed it. What was the protein type? What was it? Whey?
Just said whey protein.
Yeah. If it's whey, that's going to be a little quicker. I recommend this really strong blend that a lot of top prep guys use called Team Skip Blend from True Nutrition. Yeah,
I've heard of it. Marshmallow treat.
Yep, exactly. But because it's a blend, it does move a little bit slower than the whey. It's still, you're still drinking. It's not going to be like a solid
steak.
protein source exactly that would have more fat in it.
Yeah.
But it does. I mean, egg white, casein, and microfiltrated whey. But anyway, add fat to it. Fat will help to slow down. Even if you have to take some fat from other meals or a meal or two prior to that meal or earlier in the day, that can help you. I'm assuming that basically what he's saying is he's probably hungry at night or starving when he gets up in the morning. It's not going to make it last all night, but if you're having trouble sleeping because you may wake up to pee and you're hungry, added fat at that time with that last meal, and take it right before you go to bed. I think a lot of people sometimes assume, I can't have a meal before you go.
Yeah.
You can have a meal before you go to bed. It's just not a great idea to take a bunch of carbs in before you go to bed unless you train late in the day, because those carbs really aren't going to be needed. It could be argued that carbs aren't really going to cause you too much problem prior to bed, especially if you train early in the morning. There's a lot of individuality there, but add fat.
Psyllium husk too. That'd be
yeah, absolutely. Fat or fiber. That's true. I should have said fat or fiber, because those help to slow down the rate that everything hits your bloodstream.
Or even, I'll give one other thing, depending on when he's training and et cetera, because a lot of times there were times where like I wasn't hungry when it was time for my next meal, and I had to go to bed to get a good quality night's sleep. But then I always wake up and use the bathroom in the middle of the night, have the shake just sitting there on the bathroom counter. So pee down the hatch, go right back to bed.
All right, we got a couple more here. Let's try to keep these moving. Okay, so this is about Paul. I believe he's an up and coming podcaster now. Question for the next show. Justin Harris has a client, Paul Barnett, who has gained like 80 pounds of solid weight in a year by doing Mike Israetel's training system, but adding a ton of insulin, Lantus every day, and Humalog 3 times a week, three times a week, 3 times a day. Is there any crazy synergy going on here between the high volume training push-pull legs with only 1 rest day on Saturday and the constant influx of insulin? I feel like most people would break running push-pull legs back to back without rest days, but maybe this guy has something figured out with extremely high carbs, high volume, high insulin. I remember he posted something. This is the guy who posted on his thing, on his video, right, Skip, saying that, because I sent it to you, saying like he knew, he's like, oh, I know Skip, I had been on intense muscle or something like that. Okay, that's him.
Yeah. So do we have to race through this one? Okay, here's the thing.
That was my way of keeping you from going for an hour.
Okay, fair enough. But I can't do it in like 20 seconds either. Okay, I'm going to be very, very careful how I say this, because Paul is a great guy. He's made incredible progress. He looks really good. No question. He got into insane condition, and then his next show, he made huge progress. And I don't want to leave out Justin Harris. Justin Harris and I came up together from early 2000s on the anabolics board. He does excellent work, great guy, great fam, all that sort of shit. He knows his shit backwards and forwards. But I am going to say this. First, I'll say that the protocol I'm not familiar with. The fact that he's using insulin and he's making great progress, that cannot be denied. He has made incredible progress from that first show to the second. But here's the part that could potentially sting, and he might not like me saying this. Hopefully he takes it for the way that I mean it. He was massively over, and that's almost a gross understatement. He was massively over dieted for that first show.
I remember this guy.
Yeah. I mean, borderline emaciated. Like he was. It was just, he got ridiculously shredded. There's no question. He was literally on a mission, I think, just to see, and I respect it, just to see how fucking retardedly lean I can get. Like I did that once.
I competed at 195, and the next time I competed bigger, I ended up coming in at like 181. because I was on that mission.
and he did. I mean, he accomplished it. He fucking made a statement and everything. But in the process, I think he chewed up a lot of fucking muscle tissue. So when he came off of that show, and this is what I always talk about, insulin sensitivity, he could not have been more insulin sensitive. He was going to grow like fucking crazy. And he did. I actually messaged him and said something to the effect of, that he was making great progress. That I had seen his pictures, like, oh my God, but be careful, because the amount of weight that you're gaining in such a short amount of time really can be detrimental, or it can become dangerous. I don't know if I use the word dangerous or not, but I hope it was received the way that I meant it, because I meant it just as, please don't let anything happen to you gaining all this weight. But he kept his condition. He kept a very good condition, and he came into that second show like he had 5 years or more of training in between.
Holy
shit. All I'm going to say is, whatever he did, whatever happened, worked. But had he not gotten so ridiculously lean and small for the first show, I think that factored into his progress more. I don't want to take anything away from this Israeli guy.
I think if he's listening, he understands that. Like,
I would think so too.
You mean all of this in the best way, and that you're not being like hyperly critical in a negative way. You're just saying, like, shit ton of progress still. Maybe it's a little less dramatic if you factor in how emaciated he put himself in. Like, still crazy awesome.
Yeah.
Yep.
Maybe not 80 pounds awesome, but like 50 pounds awesome, you know?
Now, how much of it the insulin protocol factored into it? I don't know. I mean, I give, and I've said before, insulin done the right way, for a lot of people, well, for some people, depending if you're, how it goes, because everybody's individual, can really make some big changes. I just don't know what part of that is the insulin protocol versus the fact that he came in so light anyway. I'd like to see, and you can't, the contrast if he would have not used the insulin protocol and just reverse dieted out like he had done, and then went on stage and he was ridiculously big. I want to say he was like, I don't know, 30 or 40 pounds bigger. I want to say he weighed in at like 240 for the show, or 230 or something like that. And it was just night and day. So either way, he made ridiculous progress. But I think what makes it so much more dramatic is because the before and after, the one show to the other, makes it look like he didn't have that muscle, but he lost a lot of muscle in that process. And I want to think, and I know I'm assuming this, but I want to think that Justin was more like, I really don't want to do this, but he wanted to get his just fucking lean, and it just is pretty much at the risk of some muscle tissue to do that and then come out of it. And it's funny because I'm not doing it to that degree, but I'm doing the same damn thing. I'm getting lean as fuck so that I can grow. So if that was his plan, fucking A to him and thumbs up to you, because it worked.
All right. We'll keep moving here because, like I said, we still have a bunch of them. Brett says, hey, guys, I recently saw Vigorous Steve's post saying that test flu is caused by the carrier oils. Is test flu the same thing as tren cough? It happened to me before, and I thought I was dying at the time. Is there any way to ensure that what we're putting into our bodies has a safer carrier oil in it, such as castor oil? Is a pharma TRT company the only way to go versus UGL? Thanks for trying to avoid systematic inflammation, especially in the heart. I'll start out by telling him, check out two things. We talked about this when we had Vigorous Steve on the show with Scott Stevenson. And we talked about this when we had Chase Irons on Blood, Sweat, and Gear. Skip was away that week. So I'd say check out those two things because we did talk about carrier oils and inflammation from those things. But I would also say that test flu and tren cough are two different things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys have to say on this one?
I believe test flu is caused by a metabolite, etocolinone, which is a testosterone derivative, which your body senses as a foreign invader, like an infection, and causes that flu-like response that you get.
And trend cough is just literally the shot going pulmonary.
Yeah. Trend cough is completely different. Yeah.
Let's just call it spade.
Which you can get trend cough from any injectable, right?
You can.
It's just trenbolone. It's more frequent because of the. I'm gonna forget. There, I think that just like one droplet in there, you get such a response from like the cytokines or something like that just like freeze up the lungs and start to constrict them like crazy.
Let me ask you real quick. Do you guys, when you get it, because I'm not going to tell you what I do. I'm going to ask you first. Do you then just take deep breaths and just work it out? Or do you breathe really shallow and just fight to not let it happen?
I just start coughing like crazy on purpose. Just like it's going to happen. So like, just get it over with.
Here's the thing. I fight it and I keep very short mid breath rate. And damn it doesn't hit me anywhere near. As soon as I take a big deep breath, I fucking just.
Well, usually when I do it, it's because I'm taking it when I'm lean. So then like I cough like crazy. Then I look in the mirror and I'm like, damn, I look good.
Oh yeah,
you're like, it's worth it. It's totally worth it.
You start to think like, I need this trend cough before I go out on stage.
Oh gosh. All right. All right. Oh, I met Katrina. She's out in the UK. She brought us some delicious treats too. She's an amazing baker. She says, I have a client, Barbers, about to have her stomach banded and ghrelin gland removed. I didn't know that was a thing. She has been doing well with my diet advice, though, and even stated she was shocked at how much food she can eat and lose weight. I've been trying my best to talk her out of it. What's your guys' opinion on this kind of surgery?
Well, I'm going to admit, I am right now Googling ghrelin gland.
Yeah, I didn't think there was a gland that releases ghrelin.
I know.
Honestly.
It's just kind of an odd thing. The stomach signals the pituitary gland to release hormones, but I don't.
We need a friend from Victoria.
I don't know what that means.
Victoria would answer that.
Well, she's okay. So you're banding the stomach. You're having the lap band surgery. The ghrelin gland removed.
Well, let's focus on the banded stomach. I mean, I'm sure you guys have known people. I've had several people come to me and be like, "Hey, I just had a lap band done," or gosh, I forget the name of the surgery, but
gastric root.
Bariatric, right?
There's one guy who listens to our show that actually had half of his stomach removed.
Yeah. The band is the lesser of the. It's not removing it. That's just kind of cutting it off in a sense, right? Choking it off. I don't know. What's the best way to explain
seems dangerous. But I would just say, look, I would be very investigative on the success rates in terms of where someone is at a year, 3 years, 5 years from having that done. And my opinion, I think, is that it's not very high because they didn't change their behavior. Most of those people. I mean, they have TV shows dedicated to this kind of stuff. Of all the failures,
you could stretch it back out too.
That's the other point. It will stretch, even though it's confined and it's tight. It will stretch like anything else.
Again, because the behavior hasn't changed. Like you got to change the behaviors before. You know what I mean?
And here's the catch: she's making. She says that she's making progress. She's shocked at how much food she can eat and lose weight. It's to me, and this isn't. I don't want to take a shot at the person who wants it. I understand that her client wants us to get her, life under control and her eating and everything else. But if you're progressing, just ride it and see what happens, because that could eliminate an incredibly invasive surgery with tons of potential complications, not only during the surgery, but afterwards and further down the line. It's just it's a much higher risk surgery, I think, than most people think.
Plus, it limits how much food you can eat, healthy food, So I've had people who have said like, I want to do bodybuilding. And then it's like, you can't eat a lot. They can get a little bit of protein in, a little carbs in, no room for vegetables then. I think it does add complications. I've seen people who really have struggled because they can't eat the volume they had before. So, yeah.
Well, it's equivalent of sewing your mouth shut. I mean, I'm not trying to sound like a dick, but it's like sewing 80% of your mouth shut and you can only get a straw in or something. I mean, it doesn't solve the psychological component or relationship to food. And, so you're putting in a sense, a Band-Aid on a stab wound.
All right.
If only they could like isolate like the anorectic gene and then like transfer it to these people and then take some of this gene that these people have and like, you know what I mean? Create a whole bunch of healthy people.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the anorexic part is a psychological disorder too. I had a friend die a long time ago, diet in a hospital bed, refusing to eat. But anyway, I know that's not how you meant it.
You guys discussed cramping on Clen. Is cramping common with albuterol as well? Last week I added 15 milligrams of albuterol a day, split up into 3 doses. The last few days I've noticed some leg cramps, especially in my adductors, groin area. Electrolytes and taurine help, and I'm drinking probably 1.5 gallons of water a day, but still, as a kid, I had exercise-induced asthma, so I was always hitting the inhaler. I kind of thought I knew what to expect. I've never experienced groin cramps.
I don't use and haven't had clients use albuterol probably 5 times in the 20 years that I've been prepping, and I've never used it. I could hypothesize. I mean, if he took taurine and that eliminated the cramps, then I guess it's very possible. But I don't know. I don't know if there's a connection there or not.
Yeah, I mean, it's a chemical cousin, so it stands to reason that you know, if the taurine deleting effects would still hold. But I also sometimes wonder, like, why do people go to things like albuterol when we know like clenbuterol works? Like, I feel like albuterol is kind of like, I kind of want to burn some fat, I kind of don't, but I feel like it's safer. When I don't think it's any safer, I just think it's less of a potent fat burner, really.
Yeah,
it's almost like so much of it.
A third of the dose of Clen, because that's probably what a moderate dose of albuterol is going to do to you. It's not the same thing. I don't want anybody to call me on that, but the point is I'm with you. It's just kind of like
we have tried and true.
Yeah, you know it's going to work. And we all know what the sides are from Clen, and then we don't know as much about albuterol. Look at it this way: if it worked very well, or it worked as well, we would have experience using it, and we don't.
Yeah, I've tried it, for fat burning in the past, didn't work. I've used it in the last year. I've had a prescription of it for my lungs. I've taken, my doctor asked me, she was like, do you want the 2 milligram or the 4 milligram? I was like, the 4.
I'm a bodybuilder.
And using 4 milligrams a couple times a day, I didn't notice any cramping, whereas I've used low doses of Clen and I've got cramping really quick from it, when you're dieting. So
I think it comes down to the albuterol is more specific to the smooth muscle tissue of the lungs.
Yeah.
And less specific to the contractile tissue.
All right. I think we can wrap this thing up here, guys. This is pretty solid. We got a bunch of questions out. We, did a bunch of stuff here. And we had that other episode that we did with Weapon X, which is pretty cool. I hope he does really well. I think I really want to see him do well. I feel like there's a lot of people behind him.
I liked his perspective. I think it seemed pretty healthy, and he hasn't been in the sport very long. He's had a lot of success early on, so I was kind of glad to see that he seems to have a pretty good balance and have a pretty good perspective on everything. You can't help but root for people like that. Well, I can't root for him if he's standing next to Manny.
I was just going to say, where did Manny finish at New York? Was he 3rd or 5th?
5th. That's why I did ask, because I assumed that Derek was in the top 5, but I don't keep track of anybody else as to where I just don't, outside of my clients, I don't care. And if I'd have known him, I would have cared, but I didn't know.
Yeah.
So you know who Sean Clarita is, though, right?
Have you ever heard of him?
That one I do know.
Okay.
That one I do know.
You ever heard of Derek Lunsford?
Name rings a bell.
Guys, we appreciate everybody watching. Of course, check out our sponsors, TrueNutrition.com. Use our code THINK. Get some good supplements over there. I mentioned Amino Asylum. If you know how to get there, use our code THINK. And, of course, go to supplementsource.ca if you're in Canada. Of course, we're all coaches. That's why we do this. We enjoy helping people. We coach all full time. Skip has been coaching for the longest. He's the senior of us. 20 years now, right? We're probably going to have to say 21 pretty soon, because I've been saying 20 years for a long time. You know that, right?
Right. Yeah,
He's going to pay you to keep saying 20 so he doesn't age on the show.
It'll make me feel younger. I don't know.
Guys, go to teamskip.com. You can reach out to Skip over there. Andrew, go to bodyberry.com. You can reach out to Andrew for some coaching. And for me, just email me, McNallyDiets@gmail.com. We'd all be happy to talk to you. And, with that said, another episode of Blood, Sweat, and Gear, guys. Appreciate you taking the time to hang out and answer these questions with me.
Always fun.
And thanks for watching on the live feed, guys. We'll see you soon.